Now we know why stories work, how they work, the elements to incorporate into a story, and how best to apply these skills so you can take advantage of the irresistible power of storytelling. For this last section, I want to shift gears a little and turn our attention to the connection between storytelling and leadership. Over the years, there's been billions of dollars spent and endless hours devoted to researching and designing trainings to help people to become leaders. But very little time or money has been spent on studying followers. Yet, we must have followers to be able to lead. After all, what would you call a leader who has no followers? And there are some of them out there. So I started thinking about the people in my life who I followed and tried to identify the qualities that Roger Gilliatt, Peter Clemenson, and Mary Shirley exhibited that drew me to them. As I continued my research, I discovered that our good friends at Gallup had actually done the same research. Now, these guys are the bean counters of the world. They put numbers to everything, making cold, hard sense of even the most vague and touchy-feely of subjects. So I was fascinated to see if my list of qualities that made me follow someone matched up with their analytically driven list. And I confess, I was rather surprised when everything on my list fell neatly into the 4 key themes that emerged from their research. And this is what they found: trust, compassion, stability, and hope. No wonder leadership is so hard to teach. It's a human skill, unlike management, which is a business skill and relatively easy to teach. Leadership is not a function of position, yet a function of behavior, and rests in the eyes and souls of those who are led. People don't know how much you care until you tell them how much you care. And the best way to show them is through story. Of course, I couldn't stop thinking about all of this, storytelling and leadership stuff, and continued to dig around, which eventually took me all the way back to over 2,300 years ago to the Greek philosopher Aristotle. He, as you can imagine, was a very smart guy, to say the very least, and his writings covered many subjects, including physics and biology, zoology, metaphysics, logic, ethics, aesthetics, rhetoric, and the list just keeps going on and on and on. But what I love about him is that at some point he must have realized that none of his work would come to anything unless he could persuade his audience to accept him. So he came up with Aristotle's 3 artistic proofs, which I have to say, I think are still spot on to this day. He argued that there were 3 ways to persuade an audience of your position: ethos, logos, and pathos. Ethos is an appeal to the character of the speaker. Does the audience find him or her trustworthy, knowledgeable, credible? For leaders, I think this is a critical element. Logos is an appeal to the logic of your argument, the facts. And the pathos is an appeal to the emotions of your audience. What I so love about all of this is that a well-crafted oral story allows you to incorporate all 3 of Aristotle's artistic proofs simultaneously. How powerful is that? Especially when you combine it with stories that convey trust, compassion, stability, and hope. One last thought. When I think of great leaders such as Lincoln, Martin Luther King, Steve Jobs, Winston Churchill, Bill Clinton, Gandhi, Jesus, Mother Teresa, Nelson Mandela, one thing that often surfaces is the simple fact that they are usually all great storytellers. It's how we operate as human beings. It's in our DNA. Stories are persuasive and move people to action again and again and again. Another thing I realized when thinking about the mentors I've followed is that I'm the most loyal follower when I make the decision to follow them and I'm not told or asked to follow them. In the 60s, Martin Luther King thought he had a pretty good idea. Everybody should get along, regardless of the color of his or her skin. He was utterly passionate about this. It was his life's work. So he goes off on this walk and people start joining him and he ends up in Washington, D.C. And lo and behold, there's now a gathering of 250,000 people. And he's going to be able to speak to them all the next day. I'm sure there is nothing in the world that he wanted more than to have every single person in the crowd, 30% of whom were white, to agree with him. This was really like his big chance. The next day, when he stood in front of the people, he didn't say, "You need to join me on this great mission," or "We need to join together to fight against racism." What he said was, "I have a dream." He said it 8 times. "I have a dream." He made it personal to himself. It was his dream. He allowed the people to join him on their own terms, each one of them saying to themselves, "So do I, so do I." And the rest is history. By making it personal to yourself, you allow people to join on their own terms. And when they do, they are often loyal followers forever. Well, my time is up, and it's been lovely chatting with you. I'm Matthew Taylor, a member of the Catapult Leadership Faculty. Thanks for joining me and learning a little bit more about the irresistible power of storytelling as an essential business tool.